Welcome to the 4th Annual Authors and Artists Festival, Rewilding. For those of you just joining us, my name is Liz Burton-Crow, and I'm your host for Nature Culture. Our sponsors include the New England Grassroots Environment Fund, Mary King, Kathy Cremens, and Rescue Poetics. The festival is brought to you with help from my video production company, the Nature Imaginarium, Human Error Publishing, and Score.org. Thank you to our sponsors, our colleagues, all of our presenters, and to you for being here. This session features poets writing in our retreat, and each poet has about 7 minutes. Our first reader is Mary Brancaccio.
Thank you, Liz. I'm going to begin by reading a poem that I wrote at the Cayman-Brock retreat, and it's called Songs of the Dead and Dying. One of the things about being in Cayman-Brock is that I had a very strong sense of it being a very liminal space, and this poem came from that. Songs of the Dead and Dying. Young eye, what do you see when you look through the lace of a dead fan coral? Azure sky, purple cloud pregnant with rain, cobalt of deep current, green curl of shallow wave, stained glass in the church where my father was waked, colors broken, rewoven, light looting through. Every tear is a tiny womb that carries a child of grief. All that is, all that was, is transforming, evolving, adapting, becoming petal, becoming breast, becoming cup, becoming boat, becoming fire, becoming smoke. The lost speak in the Vireo's voice, their light shining like silver fronds blessed by morning sun. They dance in orchid scent, in plumeria. They send dreams. I am flying like a frigate bird above an ocean of endless waves. I am swimming in a cloud of parrotfish inside a cradling sea. The dying whisper through osprey's bone, in the femur of goat, in conk's cracked shell, in coconut husk, in ding of stone on the iron shore. Fragile, fragile, fragile. You have forgotten how fragile you are. The dead ask, how will you walk through the world if you close your ears to our song? How can you live without our grace? The dead and dying say, you will never heal alone. Until you dismantle the wall around your heart, your mourning will be an empty belly, always hungry, always devouring. The next piece I'm going to read is from my collection, Fierce Geometry, and it's called Dirt and Rust, and it's set in Morocco. In that mountain range where they recently experienced an earthquake, though this was written about an experience of being there some years ago. Dirt and Rust. On that rutted road through the mid-Atlas, I fell hard for Mohammed's deserts. First startled by absence of trees and vast nothingness, I learned to spot the flowers in the dusk. Bitter tang rose from camel turds, glistening with grass. Road apples. I made him laugh when I called them that. Our last trip together was his final gift. Even now, as I travel America's West, I compare his world and mine. Once in Death Valley, at an old ghost town, I searched for remnants rusted nails, cans hammered flat for shingles. I dreamt the storm song on a miner's tin roof as he lay awake, thoughts of the woman he'd send for when he'd panned his fortune from dirt. In the hills, wide alluvial fans mapped gathered destinies during rare rains, congruent paths, what he and I would never have, our lives touching for some years, like palm lines of life and heart that blend before diverging. He'd ask, what does it mean, Hick, your real Hick? Without translation, histories are lost. When the plane arrived without him, I stood for hours under the dogwoods, afraid to move, flooded with longing so deep, I was sure I'd drown. I tried to remember our last phone call over that faint line from Rabat, his hope for a visa, his wait for an interview. When Fatima henna'd my hands, he sat between us to interpret. It took 3 hours. She traced each painted line with melted wax. To pass the time, she shared the story of her life, her husband in America, who took a new wife and left her waiting. All the years spent praying to Allah, imploring fakirs. She read my future in red clay. On my left palm, a rose. On the right, a brilliant red comet. And then to close, I'm going to take you to another location. This is Kingman, Arizona. And this was based on an experience I had when I went to the Grand Canyon back in, my husband and I were celebrating our anniversary. And we went up to Arizona and stayed with a friend of ours who had a ranch just south of the canyon in Kingman. It's called Birthing Pigs in Kingman, Arizona. Birthed such grunting madness. Sal charges across her pen, red eye, all hooves and dirt. Blood and urine slosh into mud beneath her trampling feet. So we dash to rescue each newborn as it drops. Here's the runt. Maggie passes me her tiny body, cold and pale, half my daughter's size at birth. Snorts and screeches of Sal's labor carry in the wind this biting March dawn. I wipe placenta from her snout, urge this dying runt to life. Mother impulse, I tuck her in my shirt, near my heart, wear her as she sleeps. Her cool skin warms until it matches mine. Maggie trims the tails and canine teeth of every newborn, then counts. 16? Runt still alive? I look beneath my jacket. When I rub her bony chest, she stretches and whines. All night I cradle that pink-eared runt, feed her bottles of warmed cow's milk. Coyotes yap and circle the ranch. We doze. Across a moonless sky, a comet paints trails of green and yellow light. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Brancaccio. Our next poet is Andrea Petitt.
Hello. Thank you for having me, and good evening from Sweden. And so I want to share with you today a first draft and unrevised piece. And it draws inspiration from an entanglement of my theorizing as a researcher and multi-species ethnographer, and also the tone and beat of cowboy poetry, which is the local culture of the humans where I've been doing field work. And the working title is simply Triad and Intersectionality Rhyme. So, to think with species triads will test our multitasking skill. Putting our vision through a refinery, we can see beyond the binary. Beyond human cow or human horse, we find the multi-species, of course. But first, what is this species inclusion, based perhaps both on biology and confusion? Species we perform beyond the gene, actions are sanctioned, kind or mean. What cowy behavior that is in fashion depends on gendered and human-centered passion. Who is allowed to do what and how depends on if you are a horse or a cow. It also depends on your place. Are you locked up or in the mountains to graze? Human-cow interactions change with force the second you introduce a horse. Human-horse relations also depend on if there are cows mixed in the blend. So age, sex, social background, and breed are relations that our analysis need. Also, how cows categorize each other and how they sort humans, if they bother. So local categories of gendered sort can place horse or cow in a specific cohort. So everybody minds are socialized together in a specific time, place, ecology, and weather. So as much as humans are intersectionally bound, so are horses and cows. That's what I've found. So through the multi-species triad, I here see a multi-species intersectionality. Thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Andrea Petitt. Our next poet is Eelka Lampe.
Hi, thanks for having me. The first two sections I'm going to share is from my first poetry collection, which I hope will be coming out next year. Dream weaving. Knowing nectar nourishing golden strings of my imagination, suspended from above, cords umbilical into the future. Bathed and bedded in eternal green, Gaia's womb with hexagonal support. My moss-covered cradle with honey snakes suspended from above, lulling me into revelatory slumber. Feeling of gray dawn like mush, honey-colored hair extensive and seeping away, poetic prophecy, my growing mantle, gentle yet urgent. Honey nectar strings in my moss womb are coils, golden snakes suspended from the holoid ether of my dreaming temple. Sextet for survival. So there's 6 sections. Eternal tremble. My feet breathing under the covers like panting lovers, corals in the ocean bed, still oxygen enough? Quivering limbs and organs and cells, body quake. Strange comfort of being alive. Mother Earth fuming and trembling. Still time? Ocean hope. You wave to me through the porous ceiling of an unwanted mirror. You are fleshy and calmly excited to nourish all that is below and above. Mourning your kin not far away, crawling with their last breaths on shores of buried sand. The salt of this earth. Salty are our tears. Salty is our saliva. Who thinks of that? My grandma, the Protestant order town nurse, did, telling me, tu ein bisschen Spucke drauf, das heilt. Put some spit on it, that's healing. I still do this today. Animals lick their wounds. How much salty elixir do we need to heal the woes of this world? Threshold. Oh, ladybug, why did you cross the threshold? Your home should be the pine, not the lampshade that percolates away your eternal now. Whisper. Your core is round yet flat, embracing the net that sustains you, always hanging by a thread, 12 ribbons with black and white beads, sprouting fluffy feathers with tails, reaching for Mother Earth. Your net a harp of the sky, eager to capture distant surprises. No judgment, just grace and benevolence. Your whispers painting themselves into the hungry crevices of my dreaming cave. And this next one I wrote on October 4th. Broken Moon, a lament. Translated from moon language into English. You've sung my praises for ages, and I was proud. Embarrassed too, since the light you said I shone wasn't mine at all. Lovers, poets, scientists, all have admired me. I make your waters come and go, your menses flow. And then the breach. An ugly metal giant static insect landed on my surface that fateful summer of '69. A padded creature came crawling awkwardly from its belly, and again touched my sacred body, garbling a line I could not understand. Then another identical creature followed suit. Hopping around, they planted into my holy flesh an ordinary stick with cloth attached, featuring undecipherable lines and, yes, at least some semblances to stars. A small but lasting hurt. The insect and padded creatures left, but more came after. This uncertainty of when and what. Colonizing, I learned, is what you do on your home planet, my trusted big sister Terra, and now beyond. Careful what you wish for. Seeking and exploring can be virtues, but conquering is an outdated art. It will get you bad, like a boomerang. Beware, all earthlings. It's not too late to change course. And one short last one, recently written. The world's longest dream. The world's longest dream cannot be told, cannot be remembered, cannot be deciphered, but it can be built upon and spun laboriously, bravely, tirelessly by blessed bees, so that we can taste it too.
Thank you, Eelka Lampe. Our next poet is Andra Durham.
Hello, my name is Andra Durham. I will be reading some poems from my latest chapbook, Fractured Yet Healing. It is released with Whip and Stock and is available on Amazon. A dream song, a flower deflowered. I ravished the honey in your garden, starved of delicacy, so I overindulged. Divorced intention. I dreamt of you with green eyes and a red dress. Masochistic proclivities ought harden. The intensity of my ardent you mirrored and divulged. Contravention and denial yields abstention. O garden. There is no pardon. Trauma frozen to that which cold. For pain's indention, the flowing of tears allays tension. Not to be divulged. A garden. Daisy reflections. The lights of soul enclose the angels' whisperings. I hear the harp with feathered strings. I see thy stark heaven of the fixed stars. I eat from your garden. It doth satiate, Salah. The lady. An angelica blooms. It is as unexpected as it is beautiful. An aster dies. A willow blooms. The grace of age surrounds the sage. An iris blooms. It is as unexpected as it is beautiful. The moon is fixed. Does brilliance remain luminous and pure? The men oar against the calm of our tide, and vex balance like disturbance to a wave. Despite souls cycling, a moon to endure, dying and transitive, yet human stride. The moon's known gaze continues to outbrave. A great solace is to be unperturbed, like the processional of a bride. Does the soul recall bearing fruits to crave? Please enliven your gaze for the despaired to save. Psychomachia. The Ivorian jed pillars of your daughters upright, Alpha and Omega, wisdom to war, heroes of womanhood. A birdsong, a blinding and Oedipal disgrace, confuse your natural law. Lot is grieved. Daughters to salt, wombs to dust. Common objects aimlessly drift as defiling hands in the cities of the plain. Alpha and Omega, wisdom and war, sulfur and fire. Ezekiel, our daughters slumber to harps, not to be roused. Awaken her to hope. Protect her as a lamb without blemish. This poem is entitled Daylight for the Discouraged. The world awaits you. Dare to hope. The oyster's defense is its pearl. So then, beauty guards. As bad company corrupts good morals, so too cynicism maligns faith. Our antidote is action contrary to our source of pain. And I will read one final poem. It is entitled A Lament, Io Tratto, I Try. O Solomon, please sharpen my sword. O Blessed Virgin Mary, the men make women dry, and vanquishing purity is the talk of the time. O Basquiat, why did they not see you in time? At equilibrium, the sun and moon sustain the tide. Once we were pure crystalline. Grandfather Time presents the choice to refine. Wisdom gently frees the noose of vice. Thank you again. My chapbook is entitled Fractured Yet Healing, available on Amazon and directly with my publishing house.
Thank you, Andra Durham. Our next poet is Mary Newell.
Thank you to all the organizers, and thank you all for being here. So my first poem is Manitou Overseer. A Manitou is the name of the Great Spirit in some Native American languages. There are different versions of it, and it's a name that occurs a lot in the area where I live in Garrison, New York, because there was a former fairly strong Native American presence of the Wapenter tribes and Lenapes. Manitou overseer, Quercus prinus, chestnut oak, Bannock chiwinzi in Lenape, ridgeline native of U.S. Northeast, widespread in the Hudson Highlands. Here the token tree, totem from Algonquin Otem, one's kin, enwrapped on granite outcrop, overspreading the ledge that bevels under our human dwelling spot. Largesse of bough stretch toward my writing room. What have you known in your tenure here? Had you thrust up when the Wapengers formed a confederacy, when the railroad men came, and the miners came down from Coppermine for a beer at the former Manitou pub? When the century turned, and some were turned out of their habitations, dispersals and shufflings and ghostings since then, you, lone sentry, but not alone, enfolded by companions around, at your stony sill, a wild cherry seedling, and Solomon's seal with its curative tuber, lichen alight on your bark, the symbiont line's hummingbird nests, feeds butterflies and other bugs. Chestnut oak, who cares for you? For whom do you care? Nuthatches hop head down. Warblers seek nesting sites. Squirrels and blue jays spread your acorns. I breathe easy on this moss plump that transforms air toxins to nourishment, where red berried wintergreen froths the moss. Totem oak, may I call you kin, care for your wounds? Where you were riven and healed, your honorable calluses, round curving scars too high to palm. If I lean in at an angle, heart proximal, arms can't reach around, but still the bounty of full embrace. Is it only me who feels nourished? A pause between thoughts elongates in breathing with, gathering toward cross-scale confluence. So I started a project of trying to map the property here, and these poems kind of relate to that. This is called A Touch of Ephemeral Wings. A dragonfly pried from a sticky spider web, entrapment where she scraped air fruitlessly, hair-thin legs bore wet paper dabs, while thousands of tiny lenses took me in, and me her, a common white tail Anisoptera, black striped translucent wing pairs with a dragon glare between. Now settled in open palm, width of her wings matching length of my hand. She drags her flap-like labrum, nuzzle like tiny horse lips, over my palm, sucking water I dripped on my timeline. Rarefied breathing with tempo alignment, my ribs expanding as her spiracles pulse. Then she to a cushion of damp moss, me to my nuzzled wording. Later, missing from mossy rest, I envision her copter careening around, that long tail keeping her keel. And the final poem that I'm going to read is a poem in 2 columns, so it's not a great reading poem, but I wanted to give it a try. So just picture space down the middle, which is not like a straight column, but a winding column, more like a river. It's called Like a Leaf trembling, which is a line from Donna Haraway. At least How Like a Leaf is from Donna Haraway. I thought to be a tree, tall, thriving on rocky slope, alone, not needing neighbors. Mobile, I flit around, sometimes backtrack, spreading roots underground, sometimes over climbing. In hunger search, rambling, dendrites, extend, hone in on truth, hesitant, spreading roots underground, sometimes over climbing, nourish tuned, branching, tips, stretch sunward, reliably, warbling, sprouting buds, leaflets, breeze lilt, paper scraps piling, paper birch peeling. So many crowded here with dreams and schemes, some friable, staunch trunk, firm in rooting, leaves and species expectation that fall in autumn. Now I doubt, is its knowing, knows its ising. Beguiled, I'm a warbler, not a fractal offshoot, clutching a threatened tree. Spell of freely circling fades, gravitas tug. Beneath, sweet earth takes back its own. I too will fall, much like a leaf, disposable, the least. Unleafy like, I wail and rage against the going. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Newell. Our next poet is Suzanne Rancourt.
I'm going to read some from my newest book that just came out October 10th. That's Songs of Archelochus. And then I'll read some from Migrations and Home. What appears abandoned may be incubation. I have found peace here at the river's shore that people insist is a lake, which it is not. Just ask the stones muffled by sludge, banked over rotted homes flooded by the dam in 1930, eminent domain. Ask them about the gutted deep current that spines its way unnoticed by motorized wakes. This is a river, sure as the dead it never gives up, still wedged between scuttled autos by the rolling belly sands of progress. This is the river torso wind rides for free with its erotic undulations that press each stone. Someone once told me that the first time they heard water with their hearing aids, it sounded like glass shattering. This valley shattered into a river that people insist on calling a lake. Moaning, not sharp, not splintered, but in curves or roundness, coming from the mouths of the people in the water. Their presence, a peristaltic voice. They loved this valley too. Born here, gave birth here, farmed and died here before the dam, before the flood. This is a river that innocent children, boys, summer, a luxury that only poverty can turn into paradise. This is a river. This forest is thick with life and painted green with shadows. Dandelion seeds swarm, hover, comet along the forget-me-not Milky Way, their star blossom nebula around the stone altar at the lodge. Rain smells before thunder arrives, precedes wind that scatters mosquitoes, drives mayflies onto coffee cup lids, twists branches, forces leaves to belly up. Struck by reflection at how all this moves through the plane that makes it so, the as in as above, so below. But what is that, this space that turns into this? Forget-me-nots spill their poured path to follow dandelions, together even when dispersed. Incidents constellate. Christmas, 1975. Love. I would rather have some than none. Fire Song, July 2020, for Uncle Dale. When fire combusts, bark shudders a fluttering sound, a low tone of small wings beating, reds, oranges with black underwings, underbelly. The hardwood has not yet turned to gray ash. Maybe this is what the scarlet tanager heard. This sound of distress, battle or love, was overcome by desire, incessant need to fly into the feathering flame's center that ruffled steady for 8 days and welcomed this bird that did not question why it had to touch the fire, and rose in rapid backstrokes, tail feathers already black, already singed, rising, riding a water dome of flames. The salmon in my eye is not an iris. It is an arched rainbow, repoussé, curved in relief, cat's crescent bodies and tail. A simple spiral chase, jumps, steps upstream, cats and fish, water and wind, earth and sky. This soul salmon undulates rivers' oppositional eroticism, pre-recorded instructions. Single-mindedness, their focus tethered, filament hooked into survival. Spawn, bear all, because splayed honesty is everything dignity tells. You are yelling from your yawning mouth, from the opposite shore, watching me. Ridge runner paces, waiting for that thing you say is there for me to do. The salmon in my eyes are caught in arching kick propulsion, like mosquito larvae or snapping white fly squiggles in the potted plants we water. I convulse my future regardless.
Thank you, Suzanne Rancourt. Our next reader is Lisa Ruby G. Ventura.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Lisa Ventura, also known as Poeta Ruby G. I will start off with the poem that was written for the Morris Jumel Mansions, and it was It's part of the Currents anthology published by Writing the Land and Nature Culture. This one's titled Between Hell and Hearth. Here, an ode to Black limbs that created magic within infernals enclosed by white walls. Here, an honorarium for cooks and service crews of well-off establishments. Here, in remembrance of domestic staff who punched in before dawn, toiling late into the night. Here, squandering priceless time cleaning, polishing silverware their lips would never touch. Here, in recognition of hired, borrowed, or indentured labor, barely earning $4 a month. Here, in the abyss of 18th century cellars, where hearth and servant pillows are cemented. Hearth, as in the section of a furnace, where ore is exposed to flame and meal prep arduously lengthy. Hearth, as in heart and family, as in vital or creative centers where food and love long to be manifested. Hearth, as in a symbol of one's home. But whose hearth is it anyway, if mistress in chief never engulfs a flame in it? All right, we'll go to a poem titled Radical Joy, a Remembering, which was published by La Libreta Online's poetry journal. And it goes like this. Don't forget to dance, oh beautiful child. You are an instrument of the heavens, gifting happiness and blessings to those surrounding your life. Abundant and prosperous is the light you bring when unleashing spirits trapped within. Don't let negativity get in your way, child. Oh, beautiful child. Protect your joy at all costs as you transcend into higher planes. Don't forget to laugh, child. Oh, beautiful child. You are anointed. You have been chosen by ancestors lingering in your spine. Cackle, weep, and let no obstacle dull your light. The spells have been cast away. You are within your divine rights. Child, oh, beautiful child. Thank you. And I will read this poem that was recently published by Arts by the People. It's one of two poems that was written as a ekphrastic poetry. So it was a picture taken with a Polaroid camera of a calla lily. And this is one of my perspectives. Windows into another perspective, or what breathes beneath the surface. Imagine for a 4-count inhale that what isn't visible to the naked eye, an obviously splendid flower, can be shifted into mental visuals of underworldly, cyclical machinations of living, breathing beings residing as a community within the crevices of sizable leaves. Imagine for a 2-count exhale that what cannot be discerned in broad daylight are the functionalities of God's given powers instinctually being put to great use by naturally warding off habitat predators. Imagine that in between a breath and a pause one can envision. Resilient ladybugs bringing forth protection and good luck anytime they flash lights in the direction of divine intervention. Imagine this poem isn't about stating the obvious, but about offering an alternative observation that can only be seen through furrowed frown lines and heard with ears of the guts. Thank you. I'll leave it at that. I don't know how long it's been, but thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Lisa Ruby G. Ventura. Our last poet for this hour is Susan Marsh.
Eternal Wild. I press my palms against rough weathered limestone, solid cliff band on a mountain, former slimy seabed. I've learned some words, Middle Cambrian, learned some numbers, 520 million. I can write the long string of zeros, but time expressed in a single dimension impedes my imagination, like an abstract painting that suggests a boating scene or possibly a teapot. Geologic time, such welcome solace in an age of climate mayhem, mass extinction, yet its vast numbers skip along the surface of the mind, lacking a sense of reality, of feeling, of knowing that comes from direct experience. Data as Earth's history, a report, not a poem. Is anything less knowable than a time when Earth was wrapped in methane and plants had not yet been invented? Is anything more manifest than limestone outcrops in the summer sun and thin air on this particular afternoon? Limestone speaks of the eternal, of time replaced by one long now. 2 miles high, stone remembers seabed. I wonder how it felt after eons of burial deep as time to emerge transformed into an inexplicable world of elevation, clouds, a chill mountain wind. The wild is more than land away from roads. It lives in limestone, primordial ooze and crumbling cliff, in spreading crustose lichens and an alpine bouquet of cinquefoil and sky pilot, waving pungent greetings into the eternal now. Second poem is called Thou Shalt Not Reap. Thou shalt not reap the corners of thy field, but yield an offering to those who came before, those on wings and feathered feet, with legs of 4 or 6 or 8, who hunted the great prairie, stalked the cattail sloughs, who sought refuge in the underbrush. For countless millions knew this land before thy patriarch took possession and subjected it to his mastery. Thou shalt not burn the limits of thy pasture, ditches thick with native brush. Abide instead this rough and unkept row for all who dwelt before thee, they who endured for centuries before the rake and plow and knew no fence or boundary. Their seed was scattered on 4 winds and filled the plains with grasses taller than a man and made rich and fertile the soil that feeds thee. Thou shalt not reap the corners of thy field, but render unto ash and poplar this patch of wilding prairie, tall blue stems swishing in the wind, hiding speckled eggs and rare white orchid blossoms. Thou shalt stride out into the dawn, frost brushing at thy boots, and lie beside a hedgerow under the pale stars, and feel the ground fast beneath the temple of thy soul, the earth that sustains thee, the temple of all things. And my last one, it reminds me of the one about the dragonfly we just heard. I'm so glad that we have some connection with insects. It's called The Moth. The slightest quiver snags my eye, September moth on sidewalks gray, 4 wings a half shade darker than the concrete. White-lined sphinx, lover of penstemon and phlox, who does not belong to pavement. After the rain, its damp wings tremble, but do not fly. Exposed to heedless feet, a dog's inquisitive nose. I bend and reach and nudge it onto my fingertips. Moth feet, strong and clinging, nearly weightless. Under spruce, on leaves of goldenrod, fretful wings find stillness. Later, it has flown. A Holy Spirit will appear, its costume matching need. Wild goose to Roman troops in their beds. Flames to warm the hearts of the devout. A hovering dove to plant the seeds of wisdom. Also this, a minute flutter noticed. A chance to heed the call to an act of mercy. To feel the feral touch of moth feet. To memorize this moment, steeped in grace. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan Marsh.